Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the last session of the day. If you're here, I know you want to be here, and we really appreciate it. So today we're going to be talking about driving secure Microsoft 365 Copilot adoption with Microsoft Purview. I'm 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀, I'm a senior product marketing manager on the data and AI security team, and I'm joined by my colleague Nadia, who will be up in just a second. If you're not familiar with Microsoft Purview, it is a full suite of products that are designed to help you with data security, data governance, and data compliance. It helps you mitigate risks in the era of AI. Now, in this session, this is level 300, so we want to geek out a little bit and focus mostly on the product features that we're announcing, but I had to do the marketing slide at the beginning. So when we spoke to customers considering a deployment of Copilot or just getting started, we really heard three concerns that people mentioned most of the time as being top of mind. First is that they want to address oversharing concerns. Then they want to prevent data loss, especially loss of sensitive data. And then lastly, they want to make sure that they're governing the use of Copilot so that they're meeting regulations and any organizational policies they want to put in place. So in this session, we're going to go through each one of these and talk about what it is, what we have today, and then most importantly, the features that we're announcing today to make it even better. So first, let's talk about addressing oversharing concerns. Now, when you talk to people, maybe people have a different definition of what this really means. But when we narrowed it down, it really is more about people having the right access to the right data at the right time for their role. It's important to remember that Copilot can only access data that the user is allowed to access. So it doesn't have its own permissions. And that's why we focus on evaluating and mitigating any oversharing risks that have to do with the permissions that the user has. And oversharing usually happens by accident. A lot of permissions in M365 are based on the location where the file is. So maybe they just put it in the wrong spot. Or maybe they shared it with somebody that they shouldn't have, or that link got passed around and people they didn't anticipate wanted to access the file. So we have many features that we've announced previously that help to address oversharing concerns. Really quickly, you can see them there and research them afterwards if they interest you. But we really try to focus when we plan our product on discovering the oversharing risks, making recommendations for how to fix it, making sure we're protecting content from oversharing by creating guardrails and proactively setting up policies, and then also protecting the interactions. That's content, newly created content. And then, of course, you can use Copilot to create content as well. So we want to make sure that's protected from the beginning. Now, one of the best things about being at this conference is getting to hear from you. And when we have those opportunities year-round, this is what we heard you wanted to make oversharing easier, better, and just match your business requirements. So first, a comprehensive view where you can holistically look at data security risks for Copilot, but also across other AI and other types of data as well, so that you're managing your security and compliance posture. And then number two, wanted more options to do detailed risk assessments on items within a site and not just at the site level. So today we're excited to announce two new features that address those concerns. First is our new revamped data security posture management experience. And then second is that we're extending our current DSPM data risk assessments to look at item level remediation, especially sharing links. And with that, I will invite up Nadia to show off the features. Thank you, Nadia.
Thank you, Erica. Hello, everyone. Oh, Lux. Just 1 second. Okay. Okay. So, hello, everyone. My name is Nadia Fortini. I'm a product manager, architect working on data and AI security. So today what I will present is the new data security posture management solution. So let me switch here. So here you can see the new data security posture management solution, which is a combination of the previous DSPM plus DSPM AI for AI in one solution. So now you have a central view of all your data, what's happening with this data, but also how can you remediate this risk faster. So on the posture page, we're going to see first the posture matrix. Those posture metrics will give you a sense how you're doing as you're taking action across data discovery, data protection, and data investigation. This is followed with featured insights. So those insights, in this case, are about agents. And so with AI observability, you can also find out what agents have access to, what sensitive information they have access or they are generating. There are also a couple of agents, one of them for data discovery exploration that will allow you to accurately detect sensitive information, as well as a remediation agent that helps you remediate any risk around that sensitive information. This is followed by objectives. So objectives are outcomes you are after, for example, preventing sensitive information from being shared in Copilot interaction, as well as prevent oversharing. So let's start with oversharing. So why is oversharing, important? So with Copilot, employees can find and use information way easier than it used to be. So if your permissions are too broad, it means that those employees can get access to information that maybe they shouldn't have access in the first place. What does it matter? Well, with Copilot adoption growing, your permission sprawl can also grow with it. So let's see now how you can first discover, understand where oversharing is happening, as well as how you can remediate the risk. So now I'm going to click on Review Objective. So every one of those objectives are an outcome again that you are after. In this case, we want to prevent oversharing. Every single objective starts with some insights. So here you can see from the first graph what is being overshared, what has not been scanned, and what is not labeled and therefore protected. There's then the remediation plan, which I will get to in just a second, but let's continue on the metrics. So here you have additional metrics as well that give you a sense over the last 30 days, what are the trends for oversharing, unscanned item, or unlabeled. If you continue, you can also see here some additional information in terms of what has not been scanned. You can also see what is the unlabeled content in both Microsoft 365 as well as Fabric. And then finally, you can see how many sites you have that are inactive. You might have a legacy team that created a bunch of SharePoints and they're still around, and therefore Copilot could reference that information as well. So going back to the remediation plan. So the remediation plan is a series of action, of recommendation that you can take to address the risk. So in this case, you have multiple actions, starting with protect your data from potential oversharing for both Microsoft 365 and Fabric. With Microsoft 365, you can launch this risk assessment that will give you the top 100 SharePoint sites that are overshared. So they might have links that are shared with everyone, or there's a lot of sensitive content that is being accessed and is not being labeled. If you go in the second row here, you can also create your custom assessment, meaning that you can select your own SharePoint site, your OneDrive account, and you can even select at the item level. So then those sources will be scanned, and then a result will be provided as part of this assessment. And I will get back to this in just a second. You can also create a default sensitivity label. And with this label, you can apply it and protect your sensitive information. You can also protect sensitive information using those labels. So for example, you can create a data loss prevention policy based on labels that will prevent Copilot from processing some content that is labeled, let's say, highly confidential. So going back to the custom assessment. So give me some instruction of where to go so I can create a custom assessment, which takes me to the data risk assessment page. Here you can see you can identify where oversharing is happening. You can also protect that sensitive information and monitor over time. You can see below the default assessment. It's already running, so it's been scanning 1 million items, found some sensitive data, as well as some sharing links that are shared with everyone. Continuing below, you can see the custom assessment. So the first one is in progress. Again, I selected some SharePoint site, OneDrive account. Maybe I chose at the item level, and I'm now waiting for the result. Looking at the second one, which completed, which I'm going to select. Here is the contour merger assessment that I created earlier. And as you can see, I have 136 potentially overshared items that have been detected. Below, you see additional information in terms of the number of sources included as well. And then you can see the sensitivity label, what has been labeled versus not labeled, and then what type of sharing links has been found on those sources. As you can see, you have many that are shared with anyone. You even have some that are shared with people outside your organization. And below, you can see all the sources that were included as part of this assessment. You can see the total number of items, how many have been accessed, how many times, by how many users, how much sensitive information has been also discovered, and how many items have been scanned versus unscanned. Now, going back to the top, now you have a new tab for potentially overshared items. So since I run this assessment at the item level, I can see every single file here that is overshared. As you can see, every single one of those have a sharing link type anyone. Many of those are not being labeled. So right from this view, what is new is that not only you know what is overshared, but you can also remediate it right there from this view. So for example, if I reviewed the first 3 documents and I have found out that it's part of a business process, I'm not concerned about those, I can resolve them right from this view. Then I'm going to go to the next file, and I will review that file, and I found out that there's some violation. I can notify the site owner via email. Then I'm going to go also to the next file, and there is more action I can take. I can also apply a sensitivity label. In this case, I will choose general, and then I will apply the label. And then finally, I have a file about the contour employees, which contains a lot of sensitive information. In this case, I'm just simply going to remove the sharing links, so only the owner can still access that document. So as you can see from just one view, I was able to create my custom assessment, see the result, and remediate the risk, again, in one central place. So now let me switch to the second concern that we heard from customers. So what we heard from customers is, I missed something here. So we're presenting today, so it was what I was already presented. I think we need to go next slide. Yes, okay. Sorry about that. So the new Microsoft Purview Data Security Posture Management Experience is going to be in public preview in December. And the new data risk assessment at the item level investigation and remediation is now in public preview. So now switching to the second concern that we heard from customers is, how do I protect against data loss and insider risk? So what is data loss? So data loss can occur with any apps. Is there sensitive information that can be accessed with an app? It can also be accessed with Copilot. Copilot helps with productivity. There's a lot of benefits, but of course, as you access data that could be sensitive. And data loss could happen if a user, is not being careful, inappropriate sharing, as we discussed, transferring the information to a different site that is not protected or is shared with anyone, or just using sensitive information in a way that is not following the guidance of the organization. So what can cause data loss in the context of Copilot? So if Copilot is referencing documents that are not labeled, not protected, and then from there generates a new document, that document is not going to be labeled either. But if your documents are already labeled, and Copilot is using this information and create a new document. That document will inherit the label and will be protected as well. Of course, Copilot can also be used to access or summarize sensitive information, and users might try to use Copilot in a way that violates, again, the company's policy. So what do we have today? So as we mentioned, we have the SPM that provides this global view of your report, the insight about what is sensitive in Copilot. With audit, from day one, you'll know what is the text that was entered by users in Copilot, what response did they receive, what search queries did happen, as well as which data was referenced. You can also govern how Copilot can interact with sensitivity data with data loss prevention by preventing Copilot from processing sensitive files. So like as I mentioned, you can exclude files or emails that are labeled, let's say, highly confidential, and those will never be processed by Copilot. You can also use insider risk to understand the pattern of what employees are doing when they are interacting with Copilot. And you can identify risky behavior. When this happens, you can automatically add those users to a stricter security policy until you have completed your investigation. So here's what we have today. So when a prompt is sent to Copilot, as I was saying, Copilot will start looking for information, will start referencing both emails or files, and a file might be labeled, and in this case, let's say highly confidential. In this case, data loss prevention will send a verdict that indeed this file is labeled highly confidential, and it will be blocked. It will not reach the Microsoft Graph, and the response from Copilot will be that this request cannot be processed. So what we heard from you, from our customers, is that you have other concerns. The first one is the concern that the user prompt might contain sensitive information and be sent to Bing for web grounding, meaning to look for richer information that might be on the web. The second concern that we heard is that when sensitive information might be typed in the prompt, let's say like a credit card, the expectation is that Copilot will detect it and not generate a response. Same thing if you have created some keywords, let's say contours or merger, you want to make sure as well that those keywords, if entered into the prompt, can also be detected and then not respond, not provide any processing as well or based on grounding. So let me introduce data loss prevention to protect your sensitive information in both Microsoft 365 Copilot and Copilot Chat. So let me switch to the demo again. So in this case, I'm going to go back to the poster page, and I'm going to review the objective for Microsoft 365 Copilot. Here again, it starts with giving you some insights, what's happening in your organization. As you can see, every week you do have Copilot interaction that contains sensitive information. You also see here again the oversharing trends, and the reason why it's in both the oversharing objective as well as the Copilot objective is that we want to give you an holistic view of everything that can impact Copilot, not just at the user prompt, but also the processing and the response. So I'm going to go further, just look at the other type of metrics that is available. You can see here, you can also see what the top sensitive information that users have been entering into Copilot. We also let you know how many unlabeled information has been referenced by Copilot. And then finally, what is your risk from an insider risk perspective? So let me go back to the remediation plan. So here, first of all, we already have default protection in place. So the Copilot interaction are also scanned from day one if you have audit on. Copilot honors the sensitivity label. So again, if your content is labeled, the response from Copilot will be labeled as well, inheriting that label. Compliance provide also AI assessments, so you'll know where you stand in terms of regulatory requirements. And then finally, you can specify SharePoint side that you do not want Copilot to process at all at any time. Then it's followed with recommendation actions. And so, as I mentioned, you can protect sensitive information based on the label, But here you have also a new policy. It's already in simulation mode, so you can review the result, or you can also review the policy detail. So with this policy, you can select the sensitive information type that you want to prevent Copilot from processing if the user entered them in their prompt. So I can select, additional sensitive information. I'm selecting a few, and then I simply add them. Then you can review the users, and same here, I can add distribution group, I can add users, and I could also add Microsoft 365 group. Once complete, and this policy, by the way, applies to both M365 Copilot as well as Copilot Chat. And then once you apply this policy, then based on the sensitive information type you selected, if entered as a prompt, it will be blocked. It will not reach the graph grounding or the web grounding at all. So I can apply it here. Then when I go to view details, I can see now my policy is created. Now let me show you also compliance. So from a compliance perspective, from the get-go, Compliance Manager is running some assessment for you. So you can review the early finding from this assessment, as well as you might have already taken some action, or somebody in your company has taken action, and then there are some recommended action that you can continue taking for full understanding of your posture. One concern also we heard from customer is any unethical behavior. So for example, somebody might be entering a prompt with the intent to harass somebody else. So in this case, you can look for the data to detect. You can select what activity to detect. And again, it would apply to both versions of Copilot. And again here, the user prompt will be restricted and will not be processed. So now let me show you also that we have reports. So we have multiple reports around AI, and we have one specifically for Microsoft 365 Copilot. So you have also here additional recommendation to protect your sensitive data, and then you can see your trend over time of sensitive information in Copilot interaction, the top sensitivity label that have been referenced by Copilot, as well as what type of sensitive information has been entered in the user prompt. You can see also here from the communication compliance, what type of unethical behavior has been detected. And then finally, your insider risk. You can see the risky users, how many of them entered risky type of prompt, and then did they receive also sensitive information from Copilot. So let me switch back to the presentation. And so here I wanted to show you data loss prevention for M365 Copilot prompts. So this is what is new here. So the user enters a prompt that might contain sensitive information, let's say a credit card. There will be a safety check with data loss prevention. If the verdict is yes, we have detected this sensitive information, it is blocked from being processed, not just at the Microsoft Graph level, but also the Bing web grounding. And Copilot will provide the response that it cannot respond to this request. So let me show you in action here. So let's say I ask, hey, who is the card owner of this credit card number? And Copilot will process, and data loss prevention will detect that this is a credit card and will block the user. So also for people that are also familiar with data loss prevention, you can also create a policy right from the authoring policy flow. So in this case, as you create a data loss prevention policy, you can select the sensitive information type, and then in terms of action, you can select to restrict Copilot from processing content, and in this case, it will block the processing of those prompts. Same thing as I just showed with data security posture management. So the Microsoft Purview data loss prevention based on sensitive information type for both Microsoft 365 Copilot and Copilot Chat prompt is now in public preview. So as you can see, with data security posture management as well as data loss prevention, you can embrace AI, you can deploy Copilot, knowing that you can secure your sensitive information. And it is now in public preview. So now I'm going to pass to Erica, who will tell you more about data governance. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Nadia. So I don't know if you guys caught it. We're gonna, for the feature that Nadia just announced, it's gonna be available to all 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀 Copilot and Copilot chat users without requiring another license. Yeah? All right, thank you. All right, let's look at our last objective, which is to govern use to meet regulations and meet company policies. So regulations are, I'm hearing way more about them these days than even 2 years ago, right? AI regulations are being invented all the time, and just people are much more serious about meeting them. And it can be confusing, like to both learn about Copilot, how to make it secure, and also how to meet all these regulations. So, and then of course you have your company policies as well of how you want Copilot to be used. So we definitely have a lot of features in this area. I think especially at Microsoft, we really want to be the partner of yours that can help you use AI and meet regulations and obligations. Everything from your data residency to the features for you to configure to manage your own data. So we have, of course, a full audit log of not just the user's actions, but anything the admin does to change settings or set something up. And then, of course, our e-discovery search tool. You can use that for any type of admin search, really, an investigation. It looks at the person's interactions, and then you can also put them on a legal hold if required. Data lifecycle management can enforce retention or enforce deletion of the interactions, just like any other data. And then one I want to make sure you check out is Compliance Manager. So Compliance Manager has about 600 pre-built assessments for 600 regulations. And it gives you, it breaks down the regulation into the specific requirements. It breaks down which ones are Microsoft's responsibility as the SaaS provider and which ones are your responsibility as your data owner. And you can keep track of progress and assign who's looking after meeting some of these requirements right from the Compliance Manager tool. So definitely check that out. So what have we been hearing in this space lately? So number one, a lot of people love that Copilot meeting recap feature, right? But you're required to then record the meeting, or at least at a minimum, create a transcript. So there's also a lot more of those now. And people are concerned about what sensitive data might be in these transcripts. Or maybe they want to have a different policy on how long you keep them, depending on if there's sensitive information and additional risk because of that. And then a lot of people are now using retention policies on OneDrive and SharePoint where these recordings are stored. Maybe in OneDrive you want to keep everything for 1 year in case you need to do an investigation or something. But meeting recordings are very large. And if they contain sensitive data, sometimes people want to delete them much sooner. And so we've heard that you want a way to override the 1 year policy that will also be okay with the auditor. So today we're introducing information protection on demand classification, extended to now look at sensitive information in meeting transcripts. And then also data lifecycle management, priority cleanup to delete meeting recordings, or any file you want to delete, really, frankly. But the meeting recordings is a big one. And then in combination, it gets kind of cool, right? So let's say Zava is acquiring Contoso. And in order to find that highly sensitive data and maybe auto-apply sensitivity labels to protect the documents, create other policies, you have to create a custom sensitive information type using like the keywords or other patterns of data. Well, because that sensitive information type maybe was created after some of the meeting recordings occurred, you want to be able to scan the past meeting recordings, find the data. And in this case, things are moving so fast with this merger that information's out of date in a month, and we want to be able to use Copilot, the people who have proper permissions, to find out about the merger information and do their jobs. And so you just want to delete it after a month because it's not useful. So on-demand classification is something that's been around for at least a year, I think, to be able to go and scan these types of files, maybe from newly created sensitive information types, identify the sensitive information, so then you can protect it. So let's look at the new option in here. So I'm going to create a new scan. Of course, I'm going to name it. And we're going to choose the SharePoint and OneDrive location because that's where we put meeting recordings. And then here's where we have some new settings. Now let's zoom in a little bit here. So of course, already we're able to set a specific time frame for the scanning. But now we have this new scan Teams transcripts only toggle, so that it only scopes it to those files. On-demand classification is a pay-as-you-go feature, and so we want to make sure you're able to really scope what you actually care about and not pay for scanning things you don't. In this case, I'm going to toggle that on and look for meeting transcripts that occurred between when the project kicked off in early September until we created the SIT. I should mention that after you create the SIT, new recordings will be automatically scanned for that sensitive information type. So we're only worried about the old ones in this case. I'm going to go ahead and submit the scan. And if I take a look at it, it's going to first give you an estimation of how many items are included. So you can double check that you did the filters correctly and it's what you expected. And then when you click Start Classification, then it'll actually do the scan. And there you can see our files, our meeting recordings, and it's identified the sensitive information types. And now I can protect this with a data loss prevention policy or clean it up with priority cleanup, which we're going to see next. All right, let's look at priority cleanup really quick. So again, priority cleanup is going to override the retention policy. So we're going to create the policy, select the OneDrive and SharePoint again, and we're going to write what's called a keyword query. There's a lot of documentation on the different ways, values to put in here and customize the query. In this case, I said, translated it says, look for meeting recordings, and then find that Contoso merger custom sensitive information type. And I just got the GUID from the URL of the custom sensitive information type. There's a close-up zoom of it if you'd like to see. And then I want to delete them after 1 month. So I want to keep them for a month and then delete them. So I'm going to set up the policy as such. And because items might also be on a legal hold, I put an e-discovery manager as the person who would need to approve those. So if the item is not on a legal hold, it'll just run the policy. But if it is on a legal hold, you may not want to delete it, right? So it's up to the e-discovery manager to evaluate that, and if they don't take any action, it won't be deleted. So then I'm going to start in simulation mode because you can't create this policy by yourself. There has to be at least 2 admins that agree to make this happen. And of course, everything's fully audited. So, oh, I forgot this one. So we do make you check a box saying you really do understand what is happening here, just to be sure. And then now I'm logging in as the second priority cleanup admin. I am now able to see simulation mode, whereas admin 1 could not. I can review it, and then I can click the turn on policy button when it's ready. So you have that 2 people kind of check there. And then let's look at the e-discovery admin approver experience really quick. So I'm going to log in as an e-discovery admin. I'm going to click on the policy name, see the list of the recordings that are up for deletion. I can look at things like metadata, URL to help make the decision. And then I can, if I want to approve the disposal and say, this isn't related to anything important. And then anything deleted will be kept in that deleted items tab for later reference, as well as the audit log. So on-demand classification for meeting transcripts is now in public preview, and then priority cleanup's actually generally available today. Now, we have one more little secret feature, and that is that we are adding some of the Purview value into the Microsoft 365 Admin Center for those AI admins. So what does this look like? So if you're not familiar with the Microsoft 365 Admin Center, which I'm going to start calling the MAC for short, it's where you can do Copilot admin activities and kind of where the M365 admin lives. So we've added a tab in the Copilot overview section called Security. And now it's going to provide some information and suggestions that are aligned to the 3 scenarios that we just went over. So we have prevent data leaks, manage data oversharing, and then strengthen data compliance. So our goal here is to provide them some information about what's going on with Copilot in their environment, but also balance that with with the data security admin. So for example, if I was to do the first objective to create a DLP for prompts policy, the admin here, the AI admin, they can't adjust what sensitive information types are in the policy. That's only the data security admin that can do that. But they can add and remove users as users on board to Copilot. And then for oversharing, right now we have some helpful links to resources and other places in Purview, but we look forward to adding more there. And then for compliance, this is with Compliance Manager and showing some data about that. So you can see actions completed by Microsoft and then actions that we recommend you take as the steward of your data. So this is also now in public preview, and it'll be rolling out about over the next 2 weeks, and definitely check it out. So with that, we'll wrap up a little bit. Here's a summary of today's announcements. I want to say that this slide represents the work of hundreds of people. Nadia and I are just the lucky people that get to be up here on stage talking about it. And a couple of the product managers that own these features are in the audience. So when you come up to ask questions afterward, you can ask the people that designed and built the feature. And then, we know it's the end, but when you want to do your on-demand watching, here's the list of all the data security related sessions. Wait till everyone gets their picture. And then here is the list of all the security for AI sessions. Great for if you're looking at more than Copilot for various reasons. And then here's our resources slide. I also especially want to point out our oversharing deployment blueprint. It's our get ready for Copilot deployment advice. We announced it last year at Ignite, but it's been very well received since then. So if you need a place to start, that's something to check out. So with that, we really appreciate you coming.
Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.